Good evening, cheers, Santi, salute. And we've made it to another Saturday night. And we're doing another toast, so cheers. And why don't we have a couple of toasts together? Anyway, I am continuing my quarantine-friendly toast in my little most recent series, learning about beer. Tonight's technically a little bit different. Tonight's actually cider. But anyway, we'll start with a little song. Oh, the Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the things I need, the sun and the rain, the apple seed. The Lord is good to me. Hallelujah. Amen. And cheers. So, welcome now if you're seeing this live or seeing this later. I'm out on my patio. This is a lovely Saturday night. It's only about 70 degrees. Somebody's going by on a motorcycle, join the patio, chilling. Nice little Saturday evening. So, and whoever that joined in, cheers. So, really credible source here, Wikipedia. All right, John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed, was an American pioneer nurseryman. Actually did gardening and stuff like that. That kind of nurse, not like ran a thing with kids. And big conservationist and a missionary for the new church, which I guess had some sort of Swedish, Scandinavian roots to it. But in the brand new U.S., he went out and did that stuff. But as author Michael Pollan likes to point out, his apples were not very edible and can be only used for cider. So that little song that we sing to kids, Johnny Appleseed, is about a gentleman that went out and gave people helped people grow apples for hard cider. And so really Johnny Appleseed was welcome in every cabin in Ohio and Indiana because he was bringing the gift of alcohol to the frontier. He was our American Dionysus, what the Greek god that did wine. So some of my favorite drinks for a reason tend to be things that have their origination with religious people. So I like Belgian ales, which have a little bit of history of being brewed in monasteries by monks, and cider, which was made popular in the U.S. by a missionary. So cheers to Johnny Appleseed. And so with this series, I kind of want to introduce people to beers. In this case, it's technically ciders. It's but a way to kind of help expand their palate. And so I'm going to go a little bit into like some of the formal descriptions of different kinds of cider and stuff, but I'll get to that in a bit. But again, technically not beer. It can be close to beer. It can be very far away from beer. But I kind of like the stuff. I really like the stuff because it does go down a little bit easier than beer, depending on what you pick, and it kind of can be a little bit easier on the subject. So if you're not used to again, I pick on IPAs. If you're not used to IPAs or kind of like heavy beers, but you want to expand what you're drinking a little bit, cider's kind of a good way to pretend you're sophisticated. Even if you don't quite know what you're doing. Technically, cider is much closer to wine than it is beer in its anatomy. And if I was doing a series on wines, I would definitely include like cider jacks or ice ciders, which are basically very high alcohol, very sweet wines. Does not taste like the ciders we'll be drinking tonight. But they're very, very good. They have a lot of them. They have a lot of good ones in Quebec. They have a lot of orchards, especially around the Quebec City area. Ile d'Orléans has a bunch of them, and they can be a lot like wine coolers. Your Woodchuck and your Angry Orchard Crisp is a lot like, they can be a lot like the wine coolers. So let me just kind of describe crisp and dry. You'll hear those a lot. Crisp is kind of sweet. That's what your regular woodchuck or your what your regular Angry Orchard's going to taste like. It basically means sweet. And then there's dry. Dry is either less sweet, more sour. It can and it can range a lot. There's a lot of range in what's considered dry or semi-dry. One company might use a slightly less sweet version of their cider and call it dry. Another version would taste like uber sour, crazy sour, make you pucker right up, and that's their dry. Or that could be only their semi-dry, and their dry would just kick your tail without, overpowering. Urban orchard, it's a main orchard, has really, really dry in that sense cider. When they say dry, they're not messing around. Another Fatty Bumpkins, another main cider, same deal. But I like drier. I'm not a big fan of the urban orchards or the Fatty Bumpkins. I like drier, but not super sour. One that just enough that makes me think that I'm drinking a beer with a apple aftertaste. So some light ones that I like include Original Sin, Strongbow, Magners. There's a little bit different. We'll talk about that. Harpoon, and another different one, Down East. So what I'm drinking tonight is, by the way, another cheers, is Citizen Ciders. That is, I believe that's a Vermont company. They're Wits Up. And if you read, I have the can. This is, they kind of go a little bit overboard with the way they market the thing. They have this really, it's the future of American cider. But it's a good cider. I mean, if you like the kind of cider that you want to kind of think of it as a beer that kind of surprises you with how much it tastes like apple juice, that's kind of like, this is a good swigging cider if you drink cider kind of like the same way you would drink a beer. Pretty clear, or relatively clear. You might almost think it looks like a Chardonnay, but it looks like a lager or pilsner would be if all the fizz had gone. Good, refreshing. You can drink it cold. So clear and easy drinking. So that is one type. So a little bit more about cider in general. Common styles of cider, including common cider, comes from regular or crab apples and has flavors ranging from sweet cider to dry cider. English cider, we'll get in a little bit, is made mostly from bittersweet and bitter sharp cider apples. Little old world style. And we'll have one of those a little bit. French style cider. So actually, this is our English. We'll try this a little bit. Samuel Smith, not Sam Adams, don't confuse it with the beer. Samuel Smith, organic cider. I'm not going to open this one up tonight because we have so many. This is Angry Orchard, just because I had it in the fridge because of a variety pack. This is Angry Orchard Rose Cider. This is like a French style. They use some Golden Delicious and Red Delicious apples, but they also use, I think, what's called the flesh apple. It's like a really red apple, not only red on the outside, but the actual innards. It's an apple that you could find in France. It has a different flavor. It's kind of neat. It's like if I'm trying to think, there's a red wine that I want to describe it as. Not that I know enough about wine. Rosette or something like that. It tastes very similar to that. And Spanish style, I'm not very familiar with the Spanish style ciders. I guess these are really super tart. And then you get New England ciders, which was kind of like the first rebels when it came to ciders. They have, some of them they add brown sugar, which there's I think, whatever the area code for Vermont, Woodchuck makes, and that's their brand, I think 817. They make this stuff called 817 or 807, whatever Vermont's area code is. And that is their Woodchuck, but with brown sugar used in the brewing process. Very, very good. You can also see molasses, honey, and even raisins. I've never had a cider with raisins. I don't think I've had a cider with honey either. Strong apple flavor, and some are barrel aged. And so one of them, even though it's not from New England, it's from Ireland, that's kind of in that vein, is Magners. If you ever have Magners, it's an Irish cider. Magners, and by the way, another cheers, because we got to keep up. Magners uses brown sugar or some sort of sugar, I think brown sugar in the process. Okay, so next one we're gonna try tonight, and I kind of teased a little bit earlier, is, probably skipped over one, but that's okay. I think I skipped to the third page, but we'll go all over the place. So let's open up the Sam Smith anyway, just because we're improvising. So this is one that you can find in you can find a lot of liquor stores. I found it down at Bow Street Market. I know they also have it at Bootleggers in Brunswick. This is not too bad. This is a little bit more golden than our Wits Up. So I guess a little bit more full lager versus Pilsner, if you want to say, in coloring. And you pour it right now, it looks like you're drinking a beer. And it tastes. This has a little bit more sweetness, but I was pretty expecting it because the Wits Up was supposed to be pretty dry. It has more of a cidery flavor. It has more of kind of like almost like the taste when you get, I don't know if you've ever had that that non-alcoholic cider that they sell in grocery stores, and you get it, for New Year's Eve in case you have anybody that doesn't drink or you want your kids to have a toast with you. Very refreshing. And it is actually nice that it has that foam on it. It kind of makes it nice and soft going down. So again, I skipped around. So I'll be all over the place. But the first, actually, Americans refer to unfiltered apple juice as cider, whether or not it has alcohol in it. So that stuff that you get in the fall, and you go out to the orchard and you pick apples with the family, and or you see it like a couple months of the year in the grocery store. That's what typically we in the U.S. call cider. But if you ask for it in other parts of the world, you're going to get something a lot different. It's typically going to be hard or with alcohol. They just don't have to say it, because when they say cider, they mean hard cider. It'd be like saying, well, we're going to have alcoholic beer tonight. Well, of course, most beer has alcohol. You only say non-alcoholic, or you only add that adjective when it's non-alcoholic. So the Greeks and Romans actually mastered the art of cider making when they came and actually took it from the English. Around 55 BC, it was already well founded there. It was being used and enjoyed by locals, and actually by that time, apple trees had even migrated from the forests around Kazakhstan. So the apple tree's been quite around. So in the United States, cider, only 9 years after the landing at Plymouth, European colonists brought it to Massachusetts, 1629. And it took them 9 years to get the cider there. You'd think they would have tried harder to get it faster. But 1629, cider making a thing in the New World in Massachusetts. Even children drank it in a diluted form. In many places, the water wasn't safe to drink. They actually had to drink beer or cider. And most homesteads had, especially in the Northeast, had apple orchards nearby. Pressing and fermenting the juice was actually the best way to preserve the fruit harvest. And in rural communities, taxes, wages, and tithes were often paid in the form of cider. Even President John Adams had a tankard a day. But by the late 1800s, cider began to, unfortunately, decline from being a popular beverage. And a major factor was the American Industrial Revolution. Unfortunately, People were moving from country to the cities and didn't have quite the easy access to the orchard, so they couldn't keep the apples as fresh, or the juice that they use as fresh. And then with immigration shifting to a lot of, to include more German people, and some of the other European countries, they were bringing over beer styles, and some beer styles were becoming more popular because of immigration. And then finally, what almost killed it was the temperance movement, which we speak ill of here. And by the time Prohibition was enacted, the production of cider was on its deathbed, practically. And it's only been in recent years come back. And I think because of, as much as I kind of like make fun of the craft beer movement, they've done a lot of things, bringing in a lot of, it's inspired the rebirth and the renaissance of a lot of styles. So what we're gonna do, just kind of another style. One I mentioned was Down East cider. I don't have a Down East, I just happen to have this. And Erin, who's not joining me tonight, but she has agreed to finish this one. This is a lot like Down East. This is Angry Orchard's unfiltered. And so a cider purist might try to make the argument to you that a good cider has to be clear. I would say that that's not true. And you can have hazy ciders and it's perfectly fine. I'm drinking one beer and toting another. This is actually well balanced. This is, again, Angry Orchard's unfiltered. It's closer in crispness to their crisp, but it's not 100%. It's a little tad drier. If you drink Down East cider too, the thing that kind of struck me the first time I drank it is tastes actually the closest to what you expect when you're drinking that farm cider that we drink. That's non-alcoholic. And this is kind of very similar. It's almost like if you let the cider stay in your fridge too long, and it started becoming fermented on its own. And by the way, sometimes if you do leave that unpasteurized or lightly pasteurized cider hang out in your fridge, it can give you a kick, but I would not recommend it because it can go in. It's so unpredictable. It can go in so many different directions. You may have like really good, starting to get a little bit hard cider, or you can get something like that's vinegar. It can go all over the place. I wouldn't recommend it. If it happens as a happy accident, God bless. It's good. But anyway, this is what kind of reminds me of. If you've left that cider and it starts to get its own little natural carbonation, that's kind of like what we have here. And not too bad. So anyway, I went a little bit around. Let's see. Did I talk about the friends now? But yeah, that's a little bit of an introduction. Again, I like ciders again because they're not usually as heavy as beers, but they can have. It's almost like it kind of appeals to me for the same reason those lighter German and Belgian ales kind of appeal to me for the same reasons. Very pleasant, and hope you guys are having a great Saturday night. And don't be afraid to get out. None of these products were uber expensive. I think the 4-pack of these were like $10. The 4-pack of these, which are pints, were like $12. Again, it's not as cheap as getting Coors Light, but these things, you're not pounding them the same. So that if you're gonna have 1 or 2 drinks, it's not a bad little bargain for Saturday night. Hope all is well. And I don't know what we'll do next. Maybe IPAs, or I was thinking of a little bit more on Belgian ales. Let me know in the comments.